stands?
Oh, wherever you can. I thought we'd be sitting, but it looks like we're going to be hanging around, just standing up. So, yeah, we'll just kind of gather where we happen.
Let me check the stream quickly.
Is Kim around or else?
Hey.
Oh, Alex, hi.
Can you hear me okay?
So,
yes,
just
your volume is a little low at
for
times.
everybody.
Yoga positions. Everybody
It's a little low and a little echoey, just like
housekeeping for everybody here in the VR land. We don't have a global mute.
All right.
So please just keep your
All right.
comments to yourselves.
Hello, everyone. We're live on the live stream. We're both in two instances at once. We're in VR in Somnium Native Client. We are here in this beautiful villa. And in the same time, we're on the same parcel in Somnium Web. So those who are watching in Somnium Web, hello. And those who are in VR, hey, everyone. How are you doing? All good?
Woo!
Hello. Doing great, as I always say. So, all right. So we have today a very special evening, which is a VR architecture fireside chat, and with that, I'll give the how to say the word to Sasha, and Sasha, take it over. Hello, everyone, once again, and let's start this discussion.
All right. Well, thank you. First to our amazing guests, who I've been Twitter stalking for many years. And thank you, Arthur, for providing the backbone, the amazing venue, and thank you for everyone for coming. This is a special event. I love architecture, I love VR, and some of these people here are absolutely amazing friends as well as amazing architects. So we have a special guest today here, all the way from Toulon in France, somewhere hiding in France in a secret bunker. Yes. And she is a fantastic Second Life architect. I will let you just please go ahead and tell us a couple things about yourself.
Hello, I am Jehan Kidd. I am an artist, and I.
Oh, we can barely hear you.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Oh,
we can hear. We can hear you.
And now?
Yes, perfect.
It's okay.
A little better.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good.
Okay. So I am Jehan Kidd. I build in Second Life. Dystopian cities.
Nice.
And voila, and I love to build everywhere. And I cannot wait to get a plot here to start building as well on Somnium space. Voila.
Fantastic.
So she's being incredibly modest here. The place in Second Life is called Hangars Liquides. It is the longest running gigantic mega cyber city, all done by Dejan herself and friends. You can rent a parcel. Amazing. Andrea, please.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It is stunning.
Thank you.
Andrea, are you here? Andrea?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So should I just present myself?
Yes, please tell us about yourself.
So I'm a traditional architect that kind of fell in love with VR. So my company actually continues to design both real physical buildings, and we also do a lot of virtual reality applications. Some are custom, and we also do kind of our own architecture, some of which is for a game that we've been working on forever, and we hope to release one day. That's going to be where the virtual architecture is going to be the main character. So I'm super happy to be here and see this amazing world and chat with all you be here while seeing this floating amazing island out the window.
Yay! Andrea is also very modest because she is a fantastic architectural philosopher as well. We've listened to many deep dives with her on various other places on the internet, including Kent Bai's show, and so fantastic words coming. And hiding over here is Alex.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about you.
Like he's trying.
Is your audio working?
I think he's trying.
Okay, we're having a.
He's doing it through
Okay, so
miming.
we'll.
Two words.
We're doing.
I'll go back to my
Architectural
more
mind.
echoey
Oh.
version. You can
Yeah,
hear
no,
me?
you
There
sound
we go.
perfect actually, Alex,
Yeah,
right now.
good.
Yeah, you sound
It's
good.
good.
Okay, yeah, my headset mic isn't working, but this is coming out of my laptop. So, okay.
Sounds good.
Hi, all. Let me get out of my menu real quick. Alex Coulomb. I run an XR studio in New York City called Agile Lens Immersive Design. I used to be a more traditional architect, and in 2013, when the Oculus Rift DK1 came out, I started to use that as a way for us to develop our designs, most of which were actually theaters all around the world. So we would check the sight lines of, what it would be like to sit in different seats in the house, go through different design options. That evolved into also using VR to test what was actually happening on stage for live shows. So we did a lot of work for the Park Avenue Armory. Recent clients include Lincoln Center, and a lot of work with FX Collaborative, like the Statue of Liberty Museum. And then kind of like Andrea's company, we also get involved just building a lot of prototypes. So clients for just, hey, what can you do with this new technology, have included Intel and Samsung and Magic Leap and Epic Games and Unity and Metastage. So very fortunate to work on a very wide variety of projects. Over the past couple of months, we've been doing a lot of work on the virtual production side of Unreal Engine. So creating virtual worlds in Unreal Engine that are then being used for live events, music videos, possibly television. We'll see where that goes. And it's been a ton of fun.
Yay! Fantastic. We're dealing with some really high caliber people here, and I'm so glad everyone was willing to take the time. Sam, tell us a bit about yourself, and I think you've got some really interesting VR architecture background.
Yeah, so it's hard to keep it short, but I'll try my best. So basically, I'm an artist. I studied architectural technology for 4 years and became basically Revit or BIM expert, like 3D modeling for architecture and all the data and all the stuff related. Then I went to work for lighting design in architecture for 2 years, so like doing churches and crazy, beautiful galleries and just beautiful lighting stuff. And then I went back to university for 4 years in architectural design. And halfway through, I was like, oh, I can buy the DK2. And so 2 years into my architecture, in uni, I started doing all my projects in VR. And so that was like 2016, roughly. And so anyways, I've been doing a lot of stuff and evolving. And basically, I'm kind of just like obsessed with creating these, discovering what's the language of VR art in the future, and also what's the architecture for VR art. And also like, how do you build in real life for VR or AR art, like furniture to help the VR, AR experience and things like that. And I've also designed the concept for the Museum of Other Realities, which is probably what most people would think of.
Oh, amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that
Yes.
place.
Nice. Yes, cool.
So we have some really, really high caliber folks here today. So what I did here, the theme, the idea of this was VR architecture. Some of Andrea's work is pushing people to think about architecture in a totally new way. I went back to the back and took a model of the best I could do of this picture on the back wall and made it into VR. So I'd just be curious, Andrea, what do you see here? What do you like and what doesn't work for you?
In this room or in Somnium in general or in the social
Just
worlds?
in this little build, this little vision of this took me about an hour and a half in the built-in browser
fantastic.
or a builder. Right. So this is just boom, boom, boom. You'll see lots of little glitches, but just curious what your thoughts are about this particular VR architecture.
Well, first of all, for an hour and a half, I think it's fantastic. I also love how you capture the brutalist spirit of it. Like I can feel the roughness of the concrete and the neons are great. What I would personally do, I would break down the ceiling and the ground floor more. I feel like they are a little bit too conventional. They're so horizontal and flat, so they remind me a bit too much of a traditional warehouse building. There's no reason why the ceiling or even the floor have to be just so flat and horizontal.
Cool. Well, thank you. Dejan, what are your thoughts? People study, just so everyone knows, architectural students study her city to learn about architecture. It's that good, and I really encourage everyone to go and check it out in Second Life. It's worth the download, 100%.
Sounds great. Sounds incredible.
Where's
Are
the
you with us,
restroom?
Ejan?
Yes, of course. What do
Yeah,
you
tell
think
it.
about...
Just
Yes,
this little build, and just what are your thoughts, and what would you change if you had your magic wand?
Well, I think it's brutalism, of course, but it reminds me the robots from Star Wars. You know, I like the forward-looking terrace, and I think it's really great for meetings in VR. It has the big room proportions for people to be able to run their cameras all over. I think it's great for a great room for meetings with a nice view over the floating island there, and I love the Ruby Cube image. I really like the sky. No, I really like this metaverse. I like, and I like Star Wars inspiration.
Thank you. You're
So,
being way
Sasha,
too nice.
you got 5 out of 5. A lot of likes.
Yeah,
Fantastic job.
I got to get some. Come on, Alex, tear it apart.
The
Tear it
crit
apart.
is
Tell us
coming.
what's
Don't
wrong.
worry
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Well, if we're looking for critique, I could say a few things.
Do it. Hit me. I'm tough.
So whenever virtual architecture starts to lean towards skeuomorphism, that is trying to represent things as they exist in the real world, I'm always taken aback when things feel slightly off. So for example, the scale of the chairs, that for anyone who is in VR, you'll notice that the chairs are too big. Now, in VR, that makes a certain amount of sense, because then you can have a larger hitbox, and it's easier then to click on a chair and sit in it. But I'm always aware when proportions feel off. So a lot of times in virtual architecture, windows, doors, things where there's a natural proportion to them in the real world, it can feel very jarring if it's off and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of intention to it being off. That being said, I do like the general breakdown of indoor space, outdoor space. There's a nice kind of hierarchy there. I would like to see a further breakdown, more human scale elements, even just things like, the little plants off on that wall are kind of helpful. And also breaking down the ceiling with the lights, that also helps break up the monotony of something like a big ceiling. And then, some of the slants are actually kind of helpful, even having a non-traditional entryway, just more of this open slit to let you in, is kind of a nice touch. And also the view is very meaningful. And I've been telling people what strikes me so much about Somnium in general compared to most of the other social VR platforms is this fact that you get a real sense of architectural context. It's really nice to be able to look out and have a view like this. VR Chat, AltSpace, Mozilla Hubs, like none of those programs will give you that kind of experience because they're all isolated to their own little worlds. So overall, B+.
Whoa!
Okay. You can see my avatar head is swelling. Okay, cut me down, Sam. Tell take it apart.
Okay, so I think there's two aspects, right? Because there's the actual what is this as architecture, and then there's the other thing, which is we're in VR, we can literally manipulate reality. So I think traditionally we'd be like, oh, how can we make this more like an agora where people have better views and everybody's kind of close and hears well. Whereas in VR, it can be like, okay, well, the hearing, I'm just going to select these 5 people as presenters. And whether you're there or wherever you're part in the conversation, even if you're far, you'll still be able to hear properly while still having a good view. I think this is an A+ for an hour and a half build, but for a real presentation space, of course, it's not, but I'm actually quite impressed by the amount of style. And so you must have some hand in design if you designed this in an hour and a half. Now, of course, the Rubik thing kind of ruins the view.
That's a neighbor. That's a neighbor.
That's a neighbor?
Yes, that's a neighbor.
In the city, there's a high cost for the right to air, right? And the land will be a lot more valuable if nobody's going to build there.
That's actually what's happening here. The parcels which are closer to the water view are much, much more expensive than the ones which are blocked by other neighbors. Yes.
And have people started trading air rights?
They'll
do that in New York.
So there are hide packages. There are hide packages which are available and which were available for people to grab, and they have a real cost. And yes, the taller buildings have a much higher cost than your kidney. No, so yeah, there is a cost for every aspect of what you just mentioned. here.
Interesting. Now, back to the architecture. Yeah, so I think it's like, is there really a spot here where I would say I would shoot a movie this way? It's also super weird and kind of funny that like there's a picture of the building inside the building. Like imagine you go to somebody's house and there's just a giant self-portrait or something. You'd be like, whoa, are you okay? But I think it is literally a talk on architecture. So like actually the building, I feel looks real. Like I give this like an A+ from the exterior, but from the interior it seems a lot more vanilla and a lot more tame. So I feel like it'd be nice to have some like another hour and a half of just saying I'm going to take this cube and I'm going to like furnish it. And I think an easy way, low poly, is just to add some kind of giant stairs and also to play with the ceiling, stairs on the ceiling, etc.
Nice. So thank you everyone for those quick like that's probably like a $10,000 whatever
consultation.
quick
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
So thank you.
Couple of theories.
Straight in there, first question.
Yeah. So just so
You get the
everyone
bill in
knows,
your
this
inbox.
this property belongs to Palamedes over here, who also owns the Rubik's Cube. So he controls his own view, smart fellow. So yeah. And thanks,
And I
a
have a
big
height
shout out to
perk,
him, and,
which is going on the
and
cube.
thank you for doing
dang
that.
it.
Okay, so I want to be considering everyone's time. We'll just jump in, I'm thinking, and
Maybe
what does it?
Yeah, go ahead, Sashi.
Oh, I was just going to say, if there's any burning questions in the room. If not, then I would start to look directly to what does, and I think Sam already touched on this, what does VR architecture specifically offer us? And I know Andrea's got a lot on this as well. What does it offer that traditional brick and mortar doesn't? Anyone can jump on that one.
Lack of physics.
Well, no gravity. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
No
I
gravity?
think there's a traditional no cost, no physical labor, no like, oh, what's the traffic that day when I deliver the brick? Materiality is not a thing. Like you're not limited by actually that's the real thing I think that's trickier to answer is what are the limitations of VR, and those are things like texture size, triangle counts, occlusion culling strategies, things like that, or like LODs. Those are the kind of things that start to affect our world and our design, rather than like, oh, how's the gravity going to crack the brick, and is this bridge going to hold, and how do I build this window over here?
Yeah, there's still
But,
budgets. They're just different kinds of budgets.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Andrea,
But I think
what are your thoughts?
I actually think if we start from what is the most important thing that physical architecture achieves? And for me, that's not a certain kind of look. Physical architecture actually controls the way we live life. It reinforces a certain daily pattern and way of thinking about how society is organized, right? We walk on these long concrete things we call a street, and then we live in our own little cube that has a certain address number along these long concrete stripes that are, streets. And then we sleep in our own little box, and then we might have friends, and we go down these things, and we go to their friends. And you can apply this kind of logic to every single activity that you do in your daily life, right? So architecture reinforces this logic of how you live life. So the moment we start to change architecture, we change the spatial relationships between what we call street, what we call house, what we call office. We're actually going to start to change the way society is organized. We're going to start to change the logic of some pretty deep stuff that we take for granted. So I would actually love to see social VR worlds trying to not copy these relationships classical relationships between street and building, but just trying to completely mess with that and see what kind of things people start to do. I think people will start to organize in a different kind of way, and maybe start to exhibit different kind of collective behaviors. So for me, that's the most exciting potential of architecture, right? It really, like, part of my, what you mentioned earlier, my work in bringing philosophy to architecture is to help as many people as possible trying to understand that architecture is way more than style, is way more than how something looks or whether something is modernist or brutalist. It actually reinforces the way society is run and organized. So in VR, we actually don't even need to drive cars. We don't even need a box to sleep in because it doesn't rain outside. So let's just experiment with these spatial organizations and see what comes out.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'd like to riff on that just a bit. Dejan, you have experience with this because how many people are living in your city right now, if you don't mind us asking?
I don't know. Not much. I think I have like 80 people right now. Renting,
80.
but but renting, like they rent the space. Like I have many more people coming, but the people who stay all the time, they have their home there. It's I have 80 people now, something like that.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Wow, that's so cool.
So this is an example of a place, a completely digital city, absolutely stunning, in which 80 people have chosen to vote with their wallets and live there. So I'd be very curious to maybe do a panel with some of those people and see how what Andrea is saying is influencing them. How does living in this virtual city influence them? Alex, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I'm fascinated by the push and pull of the psychology of architecture and how architecture came to be in the first place, playing on basic human instinct for, I think the go-to example I always think of is how it feels when I come into work in New York City, which I haven't done for about a year, but coming into Grand Central, you're in this tight little train tunnel, and then you open up into this grand public space, and it's a really magical feeling, which of course can mimic, if you think about caveman times, what it might be like to be in a very dense tree cluster, and then you open up into a wide clearing. And there's a lot in architectural psychology that has to do with sight lines and how your relationship would be with potential predators or enemies. So for example, even in a virtual space, we still abide by certain things we would do in the real world, even though there isn't any danger. Like Jessica Outlaw, who you should all look up, has all these incredible posts about how people behave in social VR spaces. For example, given the choice to be in the center of a room or more like up against the wall or in a corner, people would rather be back here because the psychological part is no one's going to attack you from behind. It's this like vantage point. And then we still have a tendency to cluster around objects. Even if these chairs weren't here at this table, if a bunch of us came into here, we would still find ourselves clustering around the table because that's how we behave. In social VR spaces, if there's cocktail tables with fake drinks, no one's actually drinking in virtual reality. I mean, they might have a real drink in the real world, but it's different, of course. But people still find those focal points and they'll cluster around.
You only virtually have a drinking problem.
Right, exactly. A virtual drinking problem, not so bad. Maybe you just have like an oral fixation and you just need something in your hand and in your mouth all the time, even if it's virtual. But then,
moving on.
So then what you need to figure out as a virtual architect is how much do you work with what's familiar and the behavior that people understand about real spaces in the real world, and how much do you push against that and use the affordances of this budding medium and try to stretch how people behave. Another easy example is to think about how film has developed over time, or cars, going from riding in a carriage with a horse, and then how at first cars were much more like that experience and then could kind of become their own thing. Just like early film did not have the cinematic language of all the cuts and close-ups and wide shots that now is very natural for us to watch. So I think as we develop more and more virtual spaces and people spend more time in them, we'll kind of be allowed to stretch the limits of what can be done here because people won't feel as bound by how they behave in the real world. I look forward to that. Whoops, 100%. I just made myself turn around.
By the way, before we continue, there's an Easter egg. This table is levitating. I just realized. Whoa.
Very nice.
Nice.
And we all assumed there was something under there.
Exactly. That's why I was bringing it up.
And yet we've got no need for it.
So this is, I'm really glad that Alex brought this up, because I consciously put the table here in the corner because I am a gunslinger and I like to have my back to the corner, and I put a light over top to invite people to the table, and it happens to line up with a really nice view, blah blah blah. So I'm glad that. So Sam, what I'm thinking about now on what has been said here is, how do you create an inviting space that makes me want to explore it, engage with it, and doesn't just terrify me at a deep cellular level?
Yeah.
Right. I think the Half-Life commentaries or interview, I don't remember where it came from, but it was a good one. It was like basically every level, every time you finish a thing, we want you to experience something completely new that you haven't experienced before, even if it's with enemies, even if it's with like a sequence or something like that. So there's maybe a little touch of the magic, and that may have been in an Andrea talk on the subject or just on an interview, I don't remember. Now there's two things that triggered interesting thoughts or memories. So Andrea mentioned that, you know, the fact that it's in VR or XR or whatever, that it's digital, she likes to dislodge the traditional rules. She talked about streets and sidewalks and things like that, but I think the most traditional one that most artists and architects are excited about is the disassociation from money. The idea to say, hey, I'm going to build whatever I want, no matter what size, I'm going to do anything I want, and it doesn't matter, nobody's ownership. I'm going to have I'm going to make buy a volcano and put a bunch of holes in it just for the beauty of it. Like I'm going to do land art, etc. And obviously, I think on the different metaverse platforms, you're going to see a very curious to see how it's going to develop, right? There's going to be the architecture from like Altspace VR and the architecture from other metaverses. And here, you've decided as a radical design decision to put money up front. So it's going to have a massive effect on the design of things. And so I'm very curious, there's going to be negatives and positives, and there's going to be unique things that come out from that, and different possibilities as well. So I'll be very curious to see the shape of that. The other thing I was thinking about is this idea of a city. And I think like at some point I was imagining like if I was a teacher at a university in architecture, and I was like, oh, I'd love to have like my whole group of students, like give them a grid, like divide a grid of land and say, okay, well, there's 30 students. Everybody gets a grid of land, and we're going to put this on the internet, and people are going to visit. And then you're going to basically evolve the city based on the reaction of the visitors. Be like, oh, why is nobody coming to my building? And just like basically the whole semester, you'd like keep upgrading the city. So like unlike traditional architecture, it'd be kind of like a versioned architecture that just reacts and improves based on the visitors and their reactions. So anyways, I just wanted to throw these two ideas
Actually,
out.
it reminds me, Sasha, about what happened here, right? When we released the ability to build in Somnium, and then suddenly the landowners, the first thing they did, they just placed a huge cube on their land, just like a landmark. Okay, I'm here. This is mine. And then over time, someone just, placed a nice villa, and then the neighbors started to build something nice as well around that, right? So it kind of like evolved through this, and now we see all of that, of course, in the distance and all of those buildings. But in the beginning it was just like cube or tall thing or something, like huge chair, and just people were doing this and improving, and then it over time it just improved to whatever we see right now, and it's still evolving every day. So it's interesting.
I remember one of my first
kind of does like Inception, where you have like you can create your dreamscape here.
Yeah,
and
although
the fact of just like you're talking about how it can develop, like literally within an hour and a half, you can change your entire build and have the city be morphing within hours, minutes, even. So think of it over the course of a week if you did a build-a-thon.
Right, and I'm thinking like my third or second experience building a VR gallery was like huge, super epic, and then I went in it in VR and it's like, it's huge. I don't care. It's too huge. I really don't care about it's not epic at all. And the other one, like my actual gallery that I'm going to be showing is like, in here would probably cost like $50,000 to buy, or the land, right? Because it's like literally, I don't know, like up to the lake or something, So it's like, oh dang, I'll never be able to have that luxury in some place like here where money is actually involved in. Unless I magically become rich. Anyways, didn't want to
sell your car.
divert the subject too much, but
so I'm glad that you brought it up, because this is a very common pushback that we have. And we had some VR chat people come in the early days, and they were just giving me the gears about how the metaverse wants to be free. But my understanding from Jaron Lanier and folks like that who looked at the early internet development where there was a very strong push towards it's got to be free. So now we have Facebook and Google who give it to you free, right? It's all free. So I'm curious, Andrea, how do you see blockchain and self-sovereign identity and this kind of thing informing VR architecture and what it can go towards?
Can I twist that question to be about the economic engine of real estate? I'm actually incredibly fascinated by what Somnium is doing, and I have to get more details on it. So I have a question for you, or for Arthur, or for whoever would like to answer it. How do you see the real estate engine of Somnium developing new patterns of monetization compared to the real estate engine of real life? I mean, the real estate industry in real life is worth, I think it's around 10 trillion. But it looks to me, from the little that I know, that you're trying to sell the parcels, and then I'm sure people can, buy it and trade it and all of that. To me, that's very similar to how real life works, like how real estate works in real life. Are you seeing new financial patterns developing in Somnium?
Actually, we do. It is a great question. And some part I know the answer, and some part we don't know, right? And at some part we look at what happens. But I think the main part of what happens here is people are real owners of their stuff, right? Somnium has no control over what you sell, to whom you sell, and for how much. We cannot influence that. Once you have the parcel, it's in your wallet, it's done. And the beautiful thing about it is that the market evolves. And, if people find it interesting, people pay more. If they don't, they don't, right? And prices evolve, and there's a lot of market influences, which, many of them we know, and some of them we don't, influence the price and the outcome. And as you mentioned, the location, the neighbor, people change parcels based on, the districts and things like that. So yes, we do see classical evolvement of parcels. So near water parcels are more expensive. People trade several parcels for one near water ones and things like that. But then we see some unconventional patterns where people start to, rent parcels to each other, or they start to, make a business out of their parcels. So let's say avatar creators, they build great avatars, which they sell. And now actually, one remark, we just passed $75,000 worth of avatars sold in less than 2 months. So creators earned $75,000 in Somnium by creating blockchain avatars. But so they rent a parcel, they show their art, or they show their avatars, and then someone buys them, they earn more money, and then they buy themselves the new parcel. So those kind of business models are evolving here. People selling digital goods and services. For example, there is a huge business in other people building for other people on the parcels. So someone buys a parcel, they don't have skills or time or whatever to build on their parcel, and they hire great builders, and those builders build them on their parcels, and builders earn money. Those people who hire them have a great build to use then and maybe monetize further. So I can say that right there you can see on the there are two buildings. You wouldn't know and notice them, but there are huge museums in the very distance, and those museums, they host more than $500,000 worth of digital art. Like that there's real money involved in terms of the real art, and there are big collectors, and there is several museums like that which host some serious art pieces. And of course, those museums were built by real architects with real plans and sketches. And for example, the one which Rubik Cube is covering us right now, the latest addition to this high quality museums was the Metapurse Museum, which is on the main island. It hosts $2.2 million worth of digital art from people. Now, they have designed those builds in a particular way, and they have replicated that design and they show those art pieces there in a special way how they wanted to show it. So that, for them to build something like that in real life would be almost impossible, right? But here they can do that, and they can showcase, they can host events, and they can show the art, and the art can stay there and can be seen by many people. So we can, for example, go there after this event and have a look. But this is kind of, I think it's not like, we change completely what people are used from the real life, but I think it's real life concepts evolving slowly and going further and further from what we're used to be in real life. So I don't know if it answers your question, but that's kind of how I see it, at least what's happening in Somnium.
Yeah, it does, and I think it's incredible. I'm not one of those people that believes things like this should be free, and because of a very simple reason. For me, it's not so much money. Like, economic activity is fun, is at the center of our life. Like, we enjoy
Yes.
thinking of things,
Yes.
and we enjoy exchanging things, we enjoy producing things that have value, right? And we need money
Yep.
to give a value to that. Like, we love to make something that people desire, right? So
Yep.
all of those things are positive things that are connected to our creativity and what it means to be human. So I would never want to remove economic activity from any kind of context, digital or otherwise. We just need to find a way to keep it, a positive activity. And having that happen here and having it give birth to all of these new economic engines, it's actually amazing. I feel like it's exactly what the metaverse should be doing.
And one more thing to add, like, people see on Twitter or somewhere, like, oh, the parcel have sold for, I don't know, $20,000, right? What they don't realize, they see the sum and they say, oh my god, this is just, whatever. But they don't realize that those are real people who buy from other real people. It's not like us selling those parcels for those numbers. Majority of the time, it's people selling to other people, and those other people are actually buying them and building them, because 95+% of parcels here, they're not owned by speculators. They're actually owned by real people, by real builders. So that is what makes us proud here in Somnium, because we know that people get joy out of their own houses, galleries, businesses, headquarters, whatever they're building, actually. Like, I own 2 galleries and I love them. Like, from the bottom of my heart, I really love them. So it is that special thing. And as you said, economical activity is in the centerpiece of human activity, and we like to exchange things. We like to attribute value. And blockchain makes it just easier and more transparent. You can see who owns what, for how much, and when.
The problem of energy consumption.
I've seen the Twitter, but if you say about Twitter energy consumption of crypto in general, I can
NFTs.
Yes, I can just tell you like this,
but there's a lot of room for improvements. I'm not saying kill it. And the other thing too is you could say, like, let's say in 10 years we say, you know what, NFT is non-workable. Like, you could still have the entire thing of Somnium space, but you just connect to Somnium and you buy art and you own art and you change it. Anyways, like, there's a whole other 2-hour conversation and a whole other 15-hour conversation.
100%. The only thing,
the energy of it.
The energy consumption they're running
Twitter right now.
Right, but the thing is, I say, use case is the king. And today in 2021, I don't know a better system of a decentralized database than blockchain. Like, if you want to have a decentralized system,
well.
Sorry.
It's limited, like one day it will stop, like when we reach 21 million bitcoins, for example.
No, that's Bitcoin, but I'm talking about Ethereum, and Ethereum is basically, an amazing database. And if you want to have something which is transparent, decentralized, and not controlled by one entity, there is no better way right now in 2021 to place it on blockchain. And
I think
to put
it's great, but we have to be honest about what needs to be improved about it, especially on the
of course,
side of things.
Of course. There is many things which can be improved.
It's serious and it's urgent.
Absolutely. But I'm just saying that if you really want to run, yes, Sasha, 1 second. If you really want to run a database transparently and publicly, I don't know any other means of technology in today's world to run it better and more efficiently.
I would love to reconvene this, because we have some real epic deep dive crypto people and blockchain people here that could have such a great conversation on that. I believe that, guys, love him or hate him, I think Elon Musk is going to change that equation with solar and
100%,
and
and
change
batteries,
things around. So and stuff is going to change. And to me, I believe, like in terms of Bitcoin, I believe it is a battery. Essentially, it's storing electrical value as a medium of exchange. Anyway, where are we in terms of everyone's time? Do we have a few more minutes?
I
don't want to.
3 more hours in me.
You got some good. Alex, how are you doing? Is Alex with us still? He's AFK maybe. Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me?
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to hop
time-wise?
off for. I'm going to hop off in 5 minutes just to do a quick Zoom doctor appointment for my 5-year-old, but then I'll come back if people are still here.
Okay, we'll still be here. Andrea, how are you at the other end at nightfall?
Yeah, I have a little bit more time. Not a whole lot because it's already 11 p.m. here. But I can definitely hang out for a little bit.
Andrea.
I was going to add to. I just was sorry. A little comment about you were saying about new modes of new economic models for the way that these kind of virtual spaces are run, and I think that there will probably be a lot, as Arthur was saying as well, a lot more smaller transactions happening. Subletting, and because there's so much less physics involved. It's these kind of changes can happen very fluidly and quite quickly in a short space of time. So it leads back in again to what the point someone else was making earlier about how space evolves very quickly and fluidly.
Fantastic.
And you were asking how we view it. No, I was saying I kind of view it kind of as the move west. Oh, you go. Alt.
Yes, thanks. I just want to jump in and check in with Dejan as far as how are things on the European side. Can you be with us a little bit longer?
Good. Yes, sure.
Okay, good. She's having a beer, I believe.
So
curious. I'd be just hold the thought, please. I'm curious to hear about an experience that happened while I was in France. I went to visit Arthur and Dejan, and she was having some issue with the platform. They were basically almost going to almost like her magnum opus, life's work, because of money. And I'm really curious how that would have been changed in a blockchain situation. Dejan, do you want to speak to that a bit?
Well, yes. Well, in a blockchain situation, well, it would need 2 moon. Would need the whatever crypto to move. Fiat money, with a fundraiser. Yes, I could have done this with crypto or with fiat. It's the same. The result was I just needed to pay the provider.
Mm-hmm. So this is a very key thing here that I think a lot of people in their enthusiasm for the unlimitedness of the metaverse fail to realize. I don't even know how much Azure servers cost per month, but they're not free. And we've got 4 gigs of 4 gigs of user-generated content, which is available at no charge to the average user. So there has to be a mechanism, and I believe
and that's not only 4 gigs. That's not 4 gigs is just the content. It's like much more of that. Yeah,
it's just user.
Yeah.
So this is being served constantly down to the users, and so I'm curious, Andrea, what do you see about low poly versus high poly, and is there a way to maximize the architecture while minimizing the server costs?
So I'm actually fascinated by the idea of these limits we have on architecture, because when I was doing only physical architecture, you have you don't just have cost, you also have limits in materials, right? Materials do not come in endless sheets. You can't. I couldn't order like a 20-meter long piece of tin foil without a seam in it. Like there has to be a seam or a cut at some point. So you end up with real architecture basically panelizing everything. For example, right? Like you have a curvy Frank Gehry or Zaha facade and it's panelized because there's this limit on physical materials. And then I came to virtual architecture, and I kind of still have to panelize things in that I have to facet curve things, which is the equivalent of panelizing them in real life, because I need to get that to have them be a little bit more low poly, right? To get rid of that perfectly smooth curvature. And in the beginning, that was kind of really annoying. I was like, damn it, no matter what I do, I'm still faced with this limitation of materials. Now I try to see the interesting part in that. So if you would tell me in 10 years from now we're gonna have such amazing processors and they're so cheap that you won't have to worry about that anymore, I think I'm gonna shed a tear, because it makes you be, this kind of limitations make you creative in an interesting kind of way. So to go back to your question about the low poly, personally, I'm not a huge fan of low poly. I feel like in many cases it fails to deliver a sense of three-dimensionality. In many low poly worlds, I feel like I'm stuck in a cartoon. I also feel like low poly is very hard to do well from a stylistic perspective. You know, it ends up being a style that, like a default low poly style that everyone comes up with. And to give it an artistic twist, you actually need an incredible amount of artistic direction and skill and texturing. So personally, I'm not so much into it.
Sam, what are your thoughts in terms of how do we squeeze that performance out of VR architecture and maintain that lower cost, environmentally even lower cost?
The utopian long term is probably, well, there's, you know, the CEO of Otoy has a lot of really nice ideas about the future, and I like looking at him for predictions.
Hey, Jules,
so he
all bow down.
Praise Jules. And so so he sees, for example, light fields as being really part of the future, and streaming. A big part of Otoy is streaming as well. So a big thing is like we're going to calculate all of this somewhere in a centralized manner, beam it over to you over 5G or whatnot, and also a lot of holographic screens where you don't necessarily need to be fully immersed with a headset, et cetera, et cetera. I think in the real life right now, there's there's different things, right? There's the architecture of VR and there's the architecture of the metaverse. And the main difference is we could, for example, when I was designing for Altspace VR, I had to think about the Gear VR basically as a lowest common denominator. And so then it's like, okay, well, your whole gallery and all the art can't have more than 150,000 triangles, etc. And like 10 2K textures or something like that. So yeah, the metaverse architecture is a lot more limited no matter what, especially if you're going to be more democratic and not say, hey, you know what, you need like $1,000 graphic card to attend this meeting, or 2,000 or whatever it is. And so yeah, the architecture of the metaverse is going to have to be low poly no matter what. But then it's like, I really want, like, I'm a VR artist, right? And when I stopped doing the Altspace VR stuff, I went the opposite way. I was like, okay, I know I'm going to run this in a gallery, and it's going to run on a 2080, and I have a 2080 I'm developing on, so I want to push that to the maximum, and then I'm going to make all the architecture so that it's occlusion calling. So basically, in every room you get, you're going to be like sucking all the capability of your graphic card as much as you can in every room because of the architecture. So I just went in the most like triangle hungry. Like my light maps are like 8K. That's because that's the limit in Unity I was able to find. But like I just have super huge light maps and I go crazy on triangles. And so I still want that top notch, like when you're in those environments, especially in art and the light is baked, and I do all my lighting in Octane and I bring it into Unity. And so that's why it's so nice. And when you're in that, you really feel like you're in a dream, and you really feel like that utopian vision of like sending an idea from one head to another, or just like bringing somebody into your world. And so I still don't want to lose that. So like, let's say I wanted to share that in the metaverse somehow. I think you could still have a teleporter. Maybe it's even a teleporter that you pay for. And then you say, okay, well, I'm not paying for like 300 or 3,000 people to go, and I'm just paying because I want to show Alex this world, etc. So like it lowers the cost. And then the other thing too is just like a lot of AI and LODs. Like, you know, you could have an LOD that's just the shell of a building. Like, you don't have to load all the interior walls. You could have a basic LOD that when you're like within 100 meters, you just see the outside shell and no transparencies or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when you get closer, it starts loading. I mean, I work at Vim AEC, and we're all about basically showing like ridiculous large BIM models, like whole cities with high performance. So I'm always thinking about like performance for giant worlds and just like computer sciencey stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we're doing the same thing here.
Perfect.
Where it's like you can see basically 5 kilometers away and all the builds, but they are with LODs, and we show the shelf, and then it's a more when you come closer with the 500 meters, it's more detailed one, and then when you come even more closer, it's even more detailed, and then close to you when you're kind of like 100 meters or 75 meters away. So yeah, there's like, this is a huge persistent world, and there's a lot of challenges to keep it performant for everybody persistently at any time, and then let people experience the build. So there's a lot of, and we constantly optimize. So we constantly introduce new optimization measures while keeping the performance, because the amount of builds is growing every day. So for us, it's a big challenge.
And I could see even having a button like confirming, like, hey, do you actually want to go into this build, or are you just passing by? Like, you know, I walked like 15 minutes earlier, and the amount of data that loaded, that was like, I don't need to see this. Like, realistically, I'm only interested in, let's say, 2 to 5% of what's in here, mostly the NFT art galleries, etc. So it's like there's so much data, I could just LOD out of my life, basically.
LOD out of my life. That's a good.
I want a t-shirt.
I LOD'd you out of my life.
Giant cube.
Alex is back. What are your thoughts, Alex?
Yeah. Sorry if Sam already covered this, but in terms of LODs too, you know, at a certain point, you don't have any kind of stereoscopic quality to something anymore. So even if there's some kind of auto billboard system, so everything past a certain distance, it's just a plane, would also be really great.
That's happened here. It happens here. Everything beyond 1 kilometer is on the plane. But we're actually working on something more realistic, because, you know, what people love to do here is they love to climb the mountain, which is right there. And they just love to see the whole thing. It's kind of like a magical feeling, and we want to make it even more magical, so it looks even more realistic without killing your machine or you having 3090 Ti, whatever you need. So so it's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of things. But those challenges and those limitations which we placed on parcels, because there are performance credits which people are limited with. We don't sell them. It's just credits they're given here. So you cannot build a limited amount of things on the parcel, and it makes people creative. People think creatively, and I think everybody who built it here can confirm that. So it has cons and pros, of course, always.
Yeah.
I also just want to point out.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that. Touch on.
Considering I was.
Okay, Alex, you first.
Yay, latency. Yeah. Considering I was just gone for 5 minutes, it was amazing to come back now and see the contrast between, it was more day before and now it's more night.
Right.
And to not only look outside and see how that view has changed, but even the spatial qualities in here of, you know, this light that Sasha set up that was very subtle with the daylight coming in is now much more prominent, and this feels like a much more meaningful space now. So that's really cool. I love that all happened organically.
Yeah.
And critique part 2, it's not aligned over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oops.
Dodging a point.
So this, I wanted to touch on this with Sam's talking about potentially adding more layers. This is a huge challenge for builders, because the darn lights cost so much. So if there was a way to bake them or do something to get the effect of light without having the light, be fantastic. So I mean, this is devy stuff, and I don't want to go too far.
Don't spoil our secrets.
Well, actually,
I know. I want to bring Dejan back and talk about a little about how you see the transfer of 50,000 active users in Second Life into something more 3D, or is that not even going to be a thing?
I think it's going to be a thing because that's a golden user base they have. They clinch upon their Second Life as their real life, so we will see something emerge, but they will have to. So it's like migrants, like they have a country, and if they blow up the country, they are going to have all these people somewhere else. So with all their luggages and stuff. No, but seriously, they have all their life in there. So their friends, their stuff
Exodus.
they bought. So I think that they are going to keep the inventories of the people. They should keep the inventories of the people and just I don't know, migrate it into something with if they want the engine, the better engine, so the better engine, but they have to preserve what the properties of the people, the property, Because
So
these
just-
It
people,
kind of links into Samuel's point then as well, like with the energy consumption. Then that's actually does have a real world footprint, doesn't it?
it's like a South American country, I think. Second Lifers have the imprint
Yeah,
of
they do.
something like a South American country. I don't know which one.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, this is a
It's
real
big.
metric.
Yes, I don't have.
Oh, it's
VR.
huge.
I don't.
Alex, you had something to jump on there?
Not even the content, I agree, or that all is amazing. I just want to draw a little bit of attention to how wise and sage everything that Jehan says comes off as, partially because of how she's seated in the chair, totally still. It's like this quiet confidence. It's like The Godfather, like Marlon Brando. And it's amazing how that stillness can draw so much attention to it, because we're all here like kind of fidgety and twitching and moving around, and she's like
Bitching
perfectly
around.
still. Yeah.
2D. I love chatting with Second Lifers because, man, they can chat on the old text chat, man. It's crazy. So yeah, I want to bring this down. I think if everyone wants to, I'd like to open some questions for audience members. Some people have been jumping in. Thank you, and just and get us to a point where we can say, one thing I got to do this. My personal pet project. I think augmented reality is coming. I think we can agree.
Yes.
And I think
It's
the
here.
cool kids are going to adopt augmented reality before VR. Of course, we all know that AR is going to lead to VR because AR is going to become VR and there will be no difference. And I think that in the future, and this is my theory, and I'd like to hear some feedback, that you will have people who will live in a box that keeps their meat warm and place to go to the bathroom and have a shower, whatever. But everything will be augmented. They will literally wake up and put on their gear, and they will not take it off until they go back to sleep. And even then, some will not take it off. I'm
Yeah, the
curious,
cyber
Andrea,
diaper really
what are your
helps.
thoughts? Yeah. Andrea, what do you think of this concept of living in a gray box but augmenting it dynamically?
I mean, how does that feel for people who are in Somnium every day? Is it starting to feel like that?
Well,
It's starting
if
to
you
feel
could,
like they are like their own house is keeping their body warm, but the real action is in Somnium.
I would say, in looking at 17 years of history of Second Life, absolutely. Currently, I am literally in my work clothes. I came directly from work and I work outside, so I've got dirt on me, and I'm sitting in an unheated play space because I do VR esports and I can't have it too warm. So I am in the metaverse. My brain is here with you, but my body is going, hey, it's cold.
So do you have any complaints about that? Do you see any downside, or you're like, this is cool, I wish more people would have this lifestyle? Because I feel like you spend way more time in social VR worlds than I do, and maybe some other people in the room as well. So
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of want to know the answers to these things as well. Like, do you wish more lifestyle, and do you see any downsides to it?
Oh, she flipped that around,
I mean, for me, until haptics come, and they're just starting to come, until haptics come, the brain can make up all sorts of sensor fusion, create reality out of very little information. So as soon as we get a decent haptics, then Ready Player One, we're already here with what we're doing in Somnium and in other platforms. But once you get haptics, when Dejan knows that I just touched her shoulder, right? Or I can shake hands with Sam from 3,000 kilometers away, and I can augment my daily life as I go to the store to buy food for my meat body. Then yeah, I'm sold. I want to be able to take them off. I don't want to.
Also, I think like I'm getting delivered the Catwalk VR on Monday. So I think that is a very important part, because I will tell more when I actually use it and see how it affects. But from what I think and what I tried on different conferences and stuff, I think being able to freely walk without thinking about it, because right now we always think about either the cable or limitation of the room. Once you put away that and you put haptics on, then I think we're really getting close. Like, as we always say here, like, the brain is tricked. Our brain is absolutely tricked. We believe, at least in my case, I believe what I see. You know, if after 2 minutes, I'm completely immersed, right? And that is just the beginning. We're in 2021. Like, I just cannot imagine. And I've seen some headsets and I've seen some, you know, tech which basically leads to what happens. And in 2023, 2025, this will be super sleek, will be very high res, and we are already there actually with high res displays, and we will feel even more immersed. So yeah, I think the future is bright for.
I think it would be a great student projects for architecture students. Like, let's say you say, build yourself a little.
Sasha, yeah, maybe he disconnected.
Let's say you say, okay, everybody has to build like the most minimal house. And I mean, there's been a lot of really interesting movement in the minimal housing lately, although of course the pandemic kind of wiped that out. Like, there's been like furniture with robotics in it that'll like open into an office and close into a bedroom and stuff like that. But I think it would be great for me personally. I was living in a really, really, really small apartment, like 500, maybe 600 square foot in Montreal for 3 years. And when the pandemic hit, even though I have VR and actually like it was so much optimized for VR that I'd flip my mattress over and I'd have a VR space. But so I had a great amount of space for VR, but like the meat body is still the most important one. And personally, I feel like it would be the Virgin's accommodation problems with the eyes that I would solve before any kind of suit. Like, I'm never going to put an optics suit on. Just the hands is fine. Like, it just depends on the programmer that when you touch something, it vibrates. Like, I don't care that it vibrates on my shoulder, for example. I'm not going to put like a suit on to check my emails.
I must say, I mean, I have a wild belief, and I mean, Somnium is partly, why I started Somnium in general, but I have a wild belief that within the next 10 years, the same thing will happen with VR. What happened with, for example, landlines in Africa? They never existed, and people just started to use mobile phones. So I think huge amounts of population of the world, whether it's 10%, 15, or 20% even, in certain countries and regions, will be using VR most of their not sleeping time. And the reason for that, what I see is
AR.
I think VR, AR, but I think more VR. And now I'll explain, because I think for many people and for many, the world economy is still limited, right? And not every person in the world can afford to have all the experiences in life they want. It's just how the world is running right now, and I don't think it will change anytime soon. So, and also the same comes with the work. People want to have work, and we see it in freelance websites, for example. A lot of Eastern countries are doing a lot of freelance job for Western countries. So I think the same will happen for VR, and just people will be working and having their leisure time in VR. So I can imagine we see some people having half-time job here in VR already, And that will happen more and more. People will have full-time jobs, and people will be, after the full-time job, they will say, hey, I'm just stopping by at that disco club because there's a live DJ playing, and he'll have, the fun. You're laughing, but I think that's where...
Perhaps it will balance out the ecological issue as well in some way.
That's what I'm saying, exactly. And I think
Yes.
this is funny. It sounds funny, but trust me, in 2016, when I was trying to explain to people that I'm starting Somnium Space, which will be the virtual reality world, where people will be, building on their land parcels, which will be, selling and buying them for real money. People were looking at me and they were like, 1 second, I'm stuck in VR sentence still. What did you say about VR? What VR? What is VR? So they were absolutely laughing at it, right?
Yeah.
And here we are right now, where we have VR chats and Somniums and Outspaces, and it kind of like feels more natural. Not for everyone though, but it's already much more pronounced. So yeah, it needs time, but I think like within 10 years, definitely a huge amount of population will be spending majority of their day in VR. I truly believe that. For whatever reason.
I think we're actually saying the same thing, but basically like the big corporations like Apple, Microsoft, Google, they're like, cell phones are dead. People don't realize it yet, but cell phones are dead, and what's going to replace it is going to be AR headsets. It's going to be the same thing. You just wear glasses and you can do cell phone.
Some of their companies are dead already. Some of these companies, they will not be able to catch up. And I think some of which you just named, they will go up distinct.
The other aspect of it is that, of course, a lot of headsets will do both VR and AR.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I think we're both saying the same thing. You're just saying VR, I'm saying XR.
I'm actually for AR, and I like AR, but I think AR will be used like once you go outside, you'll just take your AR glasses and you'll be like having all those intersections and all these communications with people, and maybe it will be helping you to navigate throughout your real life, let's call it like this. But once you're at home, or you'll just switch it to VR, or you'll take a VR headset on, and then you'll be completely in the, like, it's basically, we're talking about Ready Player One vision without those crazy other things, hopefully. We don't know. But yeah, so it's just, that's the nature of world's economy. There is no way 95% of people will be able to experience all the beauties of the world in the same way as other people, for example. It's just impossible, unfortunately. It is unfortunate, but it is like this. But I think VR will democratize that, democratize work, democratize leisure time, and all this kind of stuff will be available to people. Because, hey, during pandemic, when there was a lockdown, like meeting people here, because we have daily meetup, right? Meeting everyday friends here and hanging out helped a lot. It is a great thing to socialize, and you don't feel... you don't feel that lonely. You have this social aspect. You have discos and shooting games or whatever you play, and we played. So yeah, it definitely helps.
And the neuroscience shows that from the brain's perspective, this is real. There is no difference.
Yeah,
Your brain
exactly.
is doing sensor
100%.
fusion all the time to create reality, whatever that is inside your own head. So we are in a real space here, and anyone like Jessica Outlaw can tell you that when you get up onto into their personal space and get right up on them, it's right? Because
harassment is way worse.
That is harassment, because this is a real space. So I'm really glad that we were able to connect in this real space. And I want to say very much thank you to everybody, to Andrea and Jean, Alex,
thank you all,
Sam, thank you, and Arthur for creating the platform and streaming and filming. And everybody, Pete, if you want an awesome, sick avatar, go talk to Pete. You can sell a car and buy an avatar.
Exactly, sell a car, buy avatar. Yeah. That's the message.
Yeah. So feel free to stay and chat amongst yourself, or explore the world, or go climbing, because we can climb now. Yay! And Meta guys.
Oh, can I just ask a question to the panel, please? Excuse me.
Yes, please.
Bearing in mind, I'm planning on building on a large parcel that I'm renting here in Somnium Space, and keeping in mind that it's we are limited to mostly flat planes and textures. What would be some easy wins to create a space that has like an emotional impact? I don't know if that's like a ridiculous question or not, but is there something I can do with scale and size and contrast in spaces and colors and ceiling heights and things like that?
I mean, maybe look at Louis Kahn. Like Louis Kahn had 4 periods in his life. One was like all squares, then he went with a lot of circles, then he went with a lot of triangles, and then the last period was basically a mix of all 3. So I would look at his square period. We're just going really epic stuff with squares, and maybe even his last
Okay,
period.
cool. Yeah.
And the one thing though is like, in here, and it kind of goes to the technical aspect of things, right? It's like the reason why this image looks so good is because it was rendered with multiple bounces of light. And the reason why this space is planar is because there is none of that real bounce of light. So even if though the architecture is great, but there's no bounce of light, you're missing a lot of that like gradient, right? Like it would get darker more as we go towards the
But you can
away from the
put
sunlight.
any JPEG as a texture on these. So I'm thinking that
Well,
we
that's
might be
the
able
other
to
thing,
get
right?
some of that depth using textures.
Like for me, what I do for my own personal art is I bake the texture in Octane, which is kind of a esoteric method, and then I bring it into Unity. And so that brings you that perfect aspect. But here, like the sun changes all the time, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
anyways, it connects to another conversation about how you could use Unity to simulate the sun in a semi-real-time way.
Yeah, and
in
there,
here,
if
for
you want to
example.
get
But
inspired, there are some great builds in that part of the by Mocha where they play with lights. So basically, what they do is they build something, they look how the light affects it, and then they change it, and they know exactly that at that point of time, that image will be lighted up by light and moonlight. And actually, it's just so epic. Some things look very epic. It's like you just look there and you look at the image and you're like, okay, wait a second, that moonlight is exactly on that image right at exact right time. Wait, is that on purpose? And then you realize that everything was built on purpose. All the walls are on purpose, and that's where it gets really deep. So I definitely recommend looking at those builds as well.
When they support Unity, also you'll be able to go all the way.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like soon, Somnium Worlds are coming out, and then everybody will be able to build whatever. Yeah.
But there's two more things, just so people are aware. One is Somnium Worlds, which is a standalone Unity instance, which will be available from the parcel. So you own the parcel, deploy the world, be able to go and then go in, and then you're in a sort of a pocket universe like a VR chat style. And then also the Unity SDK is coming, which will allow bringing in preset 3D assets. And also, can you talk about AdMix if that's appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AdMix is a long-term plan for us. I'm also a shareholder in AdMix, and for a reason, because I want to have it. So AdMix is the biggest VR and non-VR gaming ad company, and what they do is, and one of the most innovative things they do is, they do non-intrusive advertising. And what non-intrusive advertising means is that, for example, this chair is a nice-looking chair, even though oversized, as we said before, but it's a nice-looking chair. But what AdMix will allow to do is, in our builder, for example, you'll be able to choose whether you put the chair as a normal chair, or it could be written that maybe somewhere there is a logo of IKEA, or there is a can of Coca-Cola, or we have TVs, for example, and instead of like a plain black TV, it will just have a Sony. What it does, and again, you as the owner of the land, you decide whether you want it or not, and then whenever people interact with the items, so whenever someone sits on it or someone picks the Coca-Cola can, whatever, the person who owns the parcel gets paid from that company directly. Now, that is
when they sit on it or when they see it.
So, both. Like we can see it, or the more interaction, the more not eye tracking though, but it's done by proximity. So they don't know where you're from, they don't know who you are. It's just based on the interactions, and the owner of the land will be paid by the interactions from that company. Again, if the person wants. If you don't want, you will never use it. And that opens kind of like the main part about it is that is a non-intrusive advertising, because most of the time it will make sense. It makes sense that TV is on the wall if you anyway will use it. And some people will just be able to monetize it better. And yeah, I think they're doing great stuff, because intrusive advertising is horrible, and they're trying to reinvent that by bringing more realistic assets, more realistic business approaches to that. And that's what will be available on the parcels eventually, hopefully in 2021, and hopefully sooner than later.
And again, thank you, Arthur, for
shape space.
Because this is a constant push-pull, the dynamics of economy, because servers cost money, versus service, which we all want to be free. So to me, I'm happy to have to pull out my virtual iPhone because I actually like my iPhone in real life and I spent a lot of money on it. So, and it's a very useful utility tool for me. It's a computer in my pocket. So I'm happy for Apple to give me a bit of money when I show off something.
If you want, that's the most important part. You have to actively opt
here's
into
the thing,
this.
Though. Cities have building codes that, for example, will prevent you from putting in advertising of a certain size or a signage of a certain size. So I guess another thing I was thinking about the other day with Somnium is like, are you going to have bylaws? Like, can somebody literally buy land and then put something illegal or obscene on the land?
Oh, that's already that's already prohibited. So if you upload anything to, you have terms and conditions. That's already prohibited. But what is not prohibited
and what about
is
if they make like their whole building a Coca-Cola? Like,
that's that's the point. They can. And what is interesting, and we had already instances like that. And what happens instantly is if someone puts something ugly on the build, the whole area starts to kind of hate it. And people either contact the people either contact the person and tell him what they think about it, or they don't want to be in that area, and he literally gets less traffic, and he realizes that if he builds something ugly, he will not get the desired outcome. So it's a kind of like a self-regulated, real living organism. And we saw people under pressure because other people told them this, or they were not visiting the place, rebuild those banners, because there are some banners here, into very nice, sleek buildings with some, moving banners where you actually love what you see. And I think that's how the community evolves. And I think the social pressure is much higher than if I, as Arthur in Somnium Space, say, you are not allowed to put Coca-Cola banner, because why not? If the person paid $20,000 for a parcel, I mean, he deserves to decide if it's if it's not violent or something, he deserves to put there whatever he wants. I mean, why would I control that? I don't want that. So, yeah.
I think maybe the real way to monetize Somnium is to have a reality TV show in here.
Oh, we had a person who
drama.
Yeah, we had a person who spent here 12 hours, and he didn't. It was like half a year ago or even more, and he didn't even. It was able to visit all the builds in that time. And now, even if you spend 24 hours in a row in here, you will not be able to go around all the builds and explore them, because there's just so much things already built. So, it's
all right.
evolving.
You still plan on having a parcel being closed unless you own an NFT ticket for like an event or something like that with limited entry?
That is actually coming this year, and actually sooner than later. And that functionality is important, of course. Also privacy settings for the parcels, for the meetings and things like that. But yes, NFT, check NFT, and then enter the parcel. That definitely is coming. Leave the message for the parcel owner if there are, many other things which are coming.
What's the most like controversial or taboo thing that's happened in Somnium in terms of building?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think what were the
like activity? I guess.
I can remember the one.
Yeah, tell me. It's hard for me to.
So we had a user. Probably we're not sure what happened, but I think some mental health stuff was going on. They actually owned property, and they erected giant billboards saying that Arthur was lying and
money. That was obviously crazy. That was actually crazy person, and he actually put the billboards
again.
And he actually not only that,
he sold his property.
Not only that, actually, he started to put some nasty
for 60 million.
No. He started to put he also started to put some illegal things in there, like birds which not allowed and things like that. So we warned him once, we warned him twice. Obviously, he didn't listen. We said, okay, what we cannot do, we cannot take the land from him, right? It's impossible because it's on blockchain, but we can restrict him and the access from him. So we restricted access. What he did is he just transferred the land to other blockchain account, and he started to build again. So we restricted access again. And then basically for him, he just went and sold his land, and he made, I think, net profit of $6,000. Even though he was banned, he was able to sell the land.
If he would have been a rich troll, he'd be more successful.
It doesn't matter.
Oh,
It doesn't matter.
about-
If
Again,
you could
because
afford to leave the land there and then build more and then just build more, like you could literally buy this whole land and troll it up. and then
you can't,
never
you
use the
can't, you
platform.
cannot buy the whole land. Like to buy the whole
No,
land will
whatever's
cost you
available.
millions of dollars, and I don't think you will. You know, it will not benefit
Elon will
you.
freaking do it. Don't tempt him.
Okay, one second,
Well,
one
that would be a
second.
funny
Watch me. I'm
You've
talking to my,
angered the
I'm
gods!
talking to my camera, Elon. You better come and try, okay? Because at
Come
least
on.
my land I will not sell. So good luck to you, Elon. No
No.
chance, no chance.
Yeah. So let's call it. Let's call it a day. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you,
Thank you very
Rajan
much. Yeah, that
and
was amazing.
Andrea, the European. It must be almost midnight now. Thank you so much for staying
It
up.
actually is, yeah.
Sam, East Coast,
Hmm.
awesome. I'm so stoked on this, and I'm going to be watching the replay because there's some really amazing knowledge was shared today. Anyone who wants to come and do a one-on-one similar thing, any kind, build something, I'm happy to rent a property to anyone who wants to try building, and let's make the
Nice.
metaverse great again.
Absolutely.
Future.
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. And
None of that old
I think-
metaverse.
let me finish the stream and then we go and shoot each other, of course, right? So everyone who was
Fine,
watching
yeah.
the stream, thank you very much for coming to today's stream. As always, you can join us
Photo
anytime.
op. We should do it. Let's do
Oh,
a
photo, yeah.
selfie,
Gather
selfie.
everyone. Let's do the photo. Let's do the
Yo,
photo.
I
Gather
think-
near the table, I guess,
think
near
my
Sasha. Come to
avatar is a
Sasha. I'll put the
Dejan can't stand up, so we have to come over here.
Yeah, it's all good. I'll put the camera here. We'll have
Where?
that's a beautiful
I
view.
stand up?
Okay.
Sasha?
Yes.
No, you can sit. You can
Yes.
sit. Yeah. Oh,
Oh, you can stand up now. There she goes.
Oh my
Everyone on the
gosh.
table. Everyone on the table.
Everybody ready? I'll put the timer on, and we have
Give it a
5,
use.
4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. And we have a picture.
I blinked.
Woo. Okay, let's do one more.
Yeah.
1 second. Let me turn.
I
Let me
was
turn it like
blinking.
this.
Do it again.
Okay, he was blinking. 5, 4, 3. Smile, everyone. 2, 1. Bam. Done. Fantastic. All the pictures are
And
here.
here's something to think about. Even though that was in the metaverse, I was still smiling
Me too.
in real life.
Me too.
because
100%. Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here. So love you guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
Whoa,
everyone.
whoa,
Thank you, the live stream. Thank you, web people,
please
because there
thank
were
you.
actually a lot of web people watching
Yeah,
on the web
web people.
parcel. We had like I think 25 people
Sam,
exchanged on the
awesome.
web as well.
Good to see
So
you.
Nice.
Boom.
Awesome.
Boom.
thank you,
Anytime.
everyone, for coming, and we
Yes,
will call it a
excellent.
day. And until the next time, see
And
you on the other side
on.
of the
Bye-bye.
monitor. Goodbye.
Kiss on the cheek.
Bye.
Should we
Bye-bye.
climb some buildings?
Samuel, can I
Okay,
just
back
ask
to
you
work
again
I
the name
go.
of that? It was Louis. You mentioned an
Louis
architect.
Kahn.